Hi, I'm Alex from Wilkinson Cameras, and today I'm at WWT Martin Mere and I'm testing the brand new Panasonic Lumix G9 Mark II. It's been 6 years since the original G9 was released, so there's been a lot of time to make some big improvements, and there certainly are big improvements on this model. We've got improved AF with the introduction of phase detection, 13 plus stops of dynamic range, 4K 60p video in 10-bit 422, 120 frames per second 4K. We can do 5.7 60p. It's got a brand new sensor, 25 megapixels up from 20 in the original. We've just got an absolute bucket load of improvements. Panasonic are promising improved image quality, improved autofocus, improved handling. Pretty much, it's just a big old improvement on the original G9, which at the time was very popular, but it is definitely time for a new model. So we're going to put those claims to the test and try out all the new features and see what we think. So the Lumix G series is of course a micro four thirds sensor series of cameras. So the G9 Mark II has a micro four thirds size sensor in it. Now, there are some reasons that you might not want a smaller sensor, like a micro four thirds sensor, but there's lots of reasons why that's a massive advantage. In particular, you can have a much more compact and lightweight body, which the G9 II certainly delivers. It's very lightweight, but also you have a 2 times crop factor. We do have another video which explains sensor sizes and crop factors, so we'll put a link down below for that. But that means that for wildlife photography, I can take this 200mm lens and it's actually the equivalent of a 400mm lens. That just means that I can carry a much smaller lens with me and see a lot further away. So for a day like this, if this was a full frame lens, it would be twice the size and twice the weight, whereas it's quite small and quite light. I do have smaller lenses with me, which are great for travel, but just for today's purposes, this one is a really nice one. But yeah, the major advantage of micro four thirds, which is both the Lumix G from Panasonic and the OM system, or Olympus OM system, is that they are very small and very lightweight. And I might cover some of the cons of micro four thirds, but that's a major advantage. And some of the downsides aren't really downsides for most people. One of the downsides is that you don't get the same depth of field as you would get on a full frame camera. But it depends what you want from your camera as to whether that is going to be important. And what you'll probably see with some of the images that I get today is that if you choose the right lenses and you choose the right composition, it's not as major issue. But if you are looking to swap a larger camera system, maybe a larger DSLR system for something smaller, it's worth bearing in mind and just realising that you'll have to change the way that you're used to shooting a little bit. Another downside to micro four thirds is that the bigger the sensor you have, the better it is in low light. So full frame sensors perform very, very well in low light situations. They don't introduce as much noise into the image, whereas a smaller sensor will always perform more poorly in low light. Now, that's not necessarily a problem because there are ways to get around that. Noise comes in when you ramp up your ISO, but this camera can shoot handheld with up to 8 stops compensation, which means you don't need to push the ISO up as high, and you can shoot in lower, slower shutter speeds, and obviously you can use fast aperture lenses. So whilst that was a problem quite a while ago, in-body image stabilisation and lens stabilisation combined means that you don't have to worry as much about that. You can also fix a lot of things in post-production now. Lightroom Classic both introduced a denoise function in one of the more recent updates, and it's absolutely amazing. So if you have shot an image which maybe is a bit noisy and might have just been previously unsalvageable or not, you know, you'd end up binning it off because it wasn't the best quality. You might be able to save it now with the help of post-production software. We have tried this, not on this camera, I must point out, but on other models and on other noisy images that we would otherwise have had to get rid of. It's absolutely amazing, but you do need a really, really high spec PC to make the most out of it. What my point is some people are put off small sensors because of noise, but there's ways around that now and it's not so much of an issue, and again will depend on the circumstances that you're using the camera. The G9 Mark II can shoot up to 60 frames per second, but on top of that you can also set pre-burst, I think it's called pre-burst, basically where you can set up to 1.5 seconds before you press the shutter. So you can almost go back in time. So when you're trying to photograph a bird in flight and it goes, and our human reaction isn't that fast, you can still get the shot because it's pre-recorded it and it'll save it to it. It's quite impressive. I'm not really sure how it works. It's not an unusual feature to find in a camera. There's lots of other models that have this and from other brands, but I've been trying it today and it's been working really well. It's quite easy to set up once you found it in the settings. I'm not going to stick on the 60 frames per second mode. It's a bit too many to go through and it is quite slow. You know, the buffer is vastly improved on the G9, but it does take a while to write to the card and we're using fast cards. So I'm going to go back to the second burst shooting mode. On the top dial here, you can set 2 burst modes. So you can set 2 different speeds. You can have one with pre-AF, you can have one at pre-AF. Pre-burst, you can have one without it. It's quite customizable and it's quite nice that you can very easily go from single to 60 if that's what you've set, to 10 or 20, whatever you've set it to. It's nice that you can flip between them. It makes it really easy to get the shot depending where you are. So new to the Lumix G9 II is Animal Eye AF. Other Lumix models have had this, but because the G9 is quite old now, you know, it's 6 years old, it didn't have it and that has been brought in. In the AF settings, you can choose whether you want it to focus on an animal as a whole. I think that applies to humans as well, or whether you want it to do animal and eye. So if you've got an animal in shot, do you want its eye to be the focus, or do you just want the entire animal? So you can choose that in the settings. What I found is that the eye AF works really well, particularly on less busy scenes. It did obviously struggle when there were hundreds of birds in a scene because most cameras would, but everything else I've pointed it at, it will pinpoint the eye really nicely. It's very quick, the tracking works really well, so that's a really nice feature. It's quite standard in cameras now, but I think existing G9 users will really appreciate that and want to upgrade for that and all the other additional features. But it works very well and it's a feature that's pretty much a must-have now. So it's nice to see that and it works, it does what it needs to do. This is the first Lumix G camera to feature face detection autofocus, which is a massive step up for the Lumix G system. As a result, AF is fast, and combined with the new AI technology and Animal Eye AF, it's leaps and bounds ahead of the former model. And of course you have continuous AF even in 60 frames per second burst shooting mode and video. So I'm talking quietly because I'm in a bird hide, but I've got the brand new Lumix G9 Mark II with me. I've been using it up until now with the kit lens, the Leica kit lens, 12-60, but I'm just going to switch this out for a 35-100 f2.8. The G9 II has a new high resolution mode which allows you to take up to 100 megapixel image. It uses a sensor shift technology, as we've seen in quite a few other cameras from other brands, and you can do this handheld. So we're going to try it on this static Lego bird, which should be a bit easier. It's not recommended to use on moving subjects, of course, but it is good for static things, buildings, or this will be a good example, and we'll see how it goes. What I like about this is that it composites the image in camera, so it stitches all those images together in camera into one single massive file, and you can do that in RAW and JPEG. In some other brands, you get all the individual images and you have to stitch them in post-processing. I hate that. I'm too lazy. I want it to be done in camera. I want to see the results immediately. So I really like that. So there have been some design changes to the Mark II of the G9. What you'll notice is that it looks a lot more like the Lumix S5 in how it's been designed. They've squared some bits off here, they've got rid of the slants on top. The viewfinder is a 3.68 million dot EVF. It has changed ever so slightly. The whole viewfinder appears to have changed. The design certainly changed. The sensor here has moved from the bottom up to the top. That's to try and avoid that irritating thing that happens where you cover that and your screen goes. So by moving it up, it's a big improvement. I'm pretty convinced that this is the same EVF that's found in the Lumix S5 II. I mean, if we look at the size of the thing, it certainly looks that way. And the Lumix S5 II also has a 3.68 million dot EVF. So I think it might be the same. It's nice to look through. It's bright, it's large. I've not got any resolution issues. It's not as it doesn't have as many dots as the OM1 viewfinder, which is absolutely massive, but it's pleasant to use. I've not had any issues with it. When you're shooting in burst mode, it's blackout free, even at 60 frames per second, so that's very impressive. Other changes include, apart from the general design, on the back here we've got an improved AF joystick, which is something I love to see on cameras. I get a bit frustrated when there isn't one on cameras. We've got some button layout changes, and yeah, but it does retain the splash proof, freeze proof and dust proof properties that the G9 had. Doesn't say to what extent, but it means that I can go out confidently in most weather situations. I mean, it's usually raining, we're quite lucky today, without having to worry. And of course, it's still very lightweight. It weighs the same as the original G9, despite being a different build, a different body, which I think is around 568 grams. We'll correct that if it's not right up at the top. And it feels pretty good. It does feel very lightweight, but I don't think it feels poor quality. It feels quite robust. The grip is nice and deep. There's also going to be an additional optional battery grip, which will give you the additional power, of course, which I think will be necessary. Certainly a spare battery might be useful. I've been through one today. But it will have the controls as well for vertical shooting, which I know a lot of people will like. It's not necessary for the handling because the lenses are so lightweight, but when you are vertical shooting, a lot of people prefer that, so it's nice that Panasonic have thought about that and introduced it from the start. Screen, you've got the classic, let's start that again. There is a screen, it folds in and out. There's a fully articulated screen on the back, which can fold away as well for when you're not using it to protect it. On the ports, we've got a headphone jack, 3.5mm, mic jack, though you can get the optional XLR adapter, so you can do 4-channel audio out with this with an XLR adapter. There's a full HDMI out, which is quite interesting. It just goes to show that they're very serious about the video on this, and there are a lot of video options which we'll cover separately. There's also USB-C charging. Now, you can charge with this directly in camera, but also you can use this to record out to an SSD, which you have to do for some of the video modes. And then we've got dual SD card slots as well, and of course the battery. It takes a BLK22 battery. I've actually got a spare one in today. I'm using a spare ProMaster battery because I've already been through one. because we do put these cameras to quite the test on days like this. I would recommend, I'd always recommend taking a spare battery. This doesn't come with a charger, so you are going to want to consider that. You are forced to charge in camera, so you might want to look at some options for that. Speaking of what it comes with, it doesn't come with too much. It comes with the camera. This is the Leica 12-60 kit lens option. So you get that with it, which comes with a lens hood. It comes with a strap, a USB-C cable and a plug for charging. And that's pretty much it. But I guess there's not much else that you would need. So we're just about to test out the 4K 120, so we can get some really nice slow-mo. It's 4K 10-bit, 420, which is really impressive. The Olympus OM1 is probably the other camera you might consider alongside this, and I think that only does full HD 120, so the fact that this has also got 10-bit colour is very, very impressive. The Lumix G9 II shoots 420 10-bit, 5.7K, 60p using the full sensor, or 422 10-bit 4K 60p, and 420 10-bit in 4K 120 for slow motion footage in glorious 4K detail. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of footage and stills from this shoot, not related to the camera, don't worry. It just means that we're limited on what we have available to show you for this video review. You can also record ProRes 422 HQ in Cinema 4K 60 or 5.7K 30 to an external SSD. External SSD recording with frame rates over 60, for example if you're recording 120 frames per second 4K slow-mo footage to an SSD, this will require an additional power supply, so do bear this in mind. Vlog is included on the G9 II as standard, so it's not an optional upgrade as we found in previous Lumix models. This gives you 13 plus stops of dynamic range to play with. So this is very much a hybrid stills and video camera, as you can tell from these extensive video specifications. So I've been at Martin Mere for most of the day now. I'm just getting through my second battery, but we have shot a lot of images, hundreds and hundreds, and a lot of video. I'm gonna go home now. I'm gonna take the camera about at the weekend, probably just take it home, probably take it with me when I go out tomorrow, probably get some photos of the cats, because what would a review video be without a picture of mine or Olivia's cats? And then get the images up, review them, and really give you my opinion of it once I've had a proper look at them. One thing I am going to test either at home or back at the office as well is the live composite mode. That's new to the Lumix G9 II. I think it was first found in the Lumix G90 and it's found in some other Lumix cameras, but back in the day of the G9 it wasn't an option. I really like live composite, I think it's quite cool. I'll probably cover that separately and do a little test of it, but I've enjoyed using it today. I found the menus a little bit hard to get my head around, but that's just because I've not used Lumix for a while as a system. The battery, they've gone reasonably quickly. I said this earlier, but definitely take a spare with you. But yeah, I've enjoyed using it. And do you know what really surprised me? I really liked using the new Leica monochrome style that's in there. I don't usually use styles, but I thought I'd test it out because it is a new feature to the camera and I really like it. It makes you think a bit differently about how you compose, so that was a surprise and I've enjoyed using it. But yeah, I'm going to test some more features at home and just take it about and use it like I would use a camera like this, and then we'll follow up with what I think about it and some of the results. Live Composite simulates long exposure photography by building up single images, allowing you to avoid overexposing a static light source as you would in a traditional long exposure, but you can still capture the movement. These pictures were taken inside in the daytime. A long exposure would have resulted in a very different image. You'd have seen everything in our messy office and I'd be a blurry mess in the background. Here's an example from another camera which offers live composite, just to show you the difference. Notice how our marketing sign in the long exposure isn't overexposed in the live composite version of the image. You can see how the image preview builds in the camera as well when you're making a live composite image. We're a bit lacking in sample images and video from the bird sanctuary, as rather embarrassingly we have lost one of our SD cards. But hopefully you'll see that it is a very good hybrid camera and a great improvement on the original G9. I really enjoyed using it. I'm quite used to using full frame cameras and really high-end ones at that. This reminded me that it's great to have a small and lightweight camera that I actually want to take everywhere that I go. I didn't feel compromised with image quality or the features available to me. The 12 to 60mm kit lens offers a great everyday range, and the Leica version is really good quality. The G9 II is a massive step up from the original G9, and with that has come a rather significant price increase. This kit that we've been testing will launch at $2249, no small chunk of change, but that does put it less than the current price of the OM System OM1 lens kit, and I guess the price reflects the technology brought down from the full frame Lumix S series. So I hope you've enjoyed finding out all about the Lumix G9 II. I hope you've enjoyed the sample pictures and videos. If you have, or if you've got any comments or questions, please pop them down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. We really appreciate everyone that's subscribed so far and that's helping us to grow the channel. But yeah, subscribe, like, comment, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And thanks for watching.